Hello beauties, welcome back to my channel. It's Clarke here and my little birdie Blue. Look at that tuft on the back of her head. That's all she has left right now. Sad times. I was an egg when I was a baby, so yeah. She takes after me. You're waking up now? So you just love it when they like lay on you like this. Oh, say hello to everybody, birdie Blue. Say hello. Oh, her bow's like getting in the way. Say hello everybody. My little darling had her jabs today. So sad, she cried her eyes out, didn't you? Didn't you? But you've been a good girl now, aren't you? This little bow's from Amazon. I got like a whole load of them to match like every outfit, and this outfit is from H&M. It's still available and it's a really nice unisex one. They come in lots of different colours. I'll link her little outfit below anyway. I'll link mine as well. It's just a tracksuit from New Look, I think. But today we're talking about how I trained to push you out. You just want some snuggles. You just want some snuggles. I feel like I've got into the habit of just filming and breastfeeding at the same time, but you know, we move. So today I'm talking about how I trained for labour. Now you might be thinking how you trained for labour, how you trained for birth, like what? Well, all will make sense. I've got my tool list here of things that have helped me and that may help you. Of course, this is all just my experience as well. I'm not saying that everything that I tell you will induce labour. I'm not saying that it's going to stop you from tearing. I'm not saying anything. I'm just going to talk through my experiences and how everything I have here and everything that I practiced throughout my pregnancy helped my labour and my birth. I will be touching on my birth story as well. Of course my vlog is out there, which is the best documentation of it, and you get it in real time, but I will tell you about how I kind of made my decisions and what was going through my mind at the time as well. Okay, so I've got lots of bullet points here that I'm going to be referring back to, so this video can be as concise as possible, straight to the point, and as helpful as it can be. Now I was early, I was 4 days early. Sometimes she gets fussy and wants to swap boobs. So I was technically early by 4 days, didn't go over my due date, and I do believe a lot of the factors I'm going to talk about perhaps did help me and help induce labour. So that's going to be something that I touch on, along with what obviously helped my mind to prepare and my body physically, and also how I put together my birth preferences, which is so important. So I believe I had a truly positive birth, even though it didn't necessarily go to plan. If you've watched my birthing vlog, then thank you, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. The comments on there are out of this world, overwhelming. It was tough, don't get me wrong, it was tough, but you know, that video says it all really in itself about the birth. But I do believe that my birth was positive because of my mind and also how I prepared my mind and my body. It's not always as easy as that, you know, there could have been a million things go wrong, and I was really adamant that I wanted to do all I could to try. I mean, sometimes it doesn't work, but to try and bring on early labour, because I didn't want to be induced on the hormone drip, and if I went over my due date, you know, there's only a certain amount you can go over. I think it's 10 or 12 days, and then you have to have the hormone drip, which is basically an induction to synthetically bring on, synthetically, is that the right word? It just forces your contractions and forces labour. It's supposed to be more painful, but lots of people have different experiences with being induced. Ultimately, your baby arriving safely is the main thing. So the reason I'm using the word trained, like how I train for birth, is because I often refer, well, I do refer to labour and birth as like a marathon. Like, you wouldn't turn up to the start line of a marathon, or, you know, turn up to the challenge of climbing Mount Everest without training for it. And not only is labour and birth a marathon, but it's the most important marathon you're ever going to run in your life. Like, it's more than that. Trust me, it's more than that. I think it's time for you to say goodbye to everyone. You're a bit grumpy. You need a bit of Calpo, I think. Her little injections are still hurting. Say bye-bye. Oh, look at you, you're so cute. You're so cute and beautiful. Wow. Okay, baby girl's gone downstairs to play with daddy and watch Moana probably. So yeah, back to the marathon comparison. You wouldn't turn up to that start line without intense training and understanding what your body's going to go through, how you need to prepare for that, and obviously be prepared mentally as well, what tools you'll need, what trainers you need. For me, it was all about understanding what my body was about to go through and how I can help it. So all of that being said, hopefully now you understand the importance of training for birth. So let's talk about the steps. So I'm referring to them as steps because these are all the factors that I believe helped me. And step one was exercise. I exercised until I was about 6 months pregnant, and I do believe that it really did help me to just prepare my body to stay limber, to stay flexible and strong. Exercise really helps me mentally as well, to stay strong, to stay fit. And of course I consulted my midwife, the doctors, and they just recommended I carried on doing what I did before but just lowered down the weights. So that's what I did. And it got a bit much for me when I got to 6 months. I got a bit more out of breath, which you don't want to be getting too out of breath when you're exercising whilst pregnant. And then for the last 3 months I pretty much just did long walks. Still exercised, but I'm talking not hardcore cardio or weightlifting, anything like that. You have to do what you're comfortable with, but I believe that step helped me. Step two, I did this when I was about 25 weeks pregnant, and that is learn everything there is to know about birth. So at 25 weeks, I decided to take a lot of your recommendations on board and look into hypnobirthing. Now this is quite hard because obviously it was Corona, it was lockdown, everything was online. So then I found the Positive Birthing Company. This is a game changer. If you do one thing that I talk about in this video, please just put yourself onto an online course with the Positive Birthing Company. It's under £40, available worldwide, and I don't want to talk through everything that they taught me because you can find that out for yourself. But hypnobirthing it's not about hypnotism, that's what I thought it was. Naively. It's about breathing techniques and understanding what your body's going through and understanding your preferences, and it's kind of endorsing natural birth, but when I say natural I mean vaginal. However, it touches on cesarean and how to prepare for that, inductions as well, induced labour. It really taught me more than I knew in my whole 28 years of being alive. It taught me more in 6 hours than I ever knew. In fact, it's more than 6 hours I think, but they're broken up into lots of really helpful videos. After completing that online course, I was not only more prepared for birth, I was excited. I was so excited for the challenge, and it just filled me with so much excitement to meet my baby and to take on the challenge. But this also taught me the importance of birth preferences. So people say make a birth plan, but preferences is such a better way to put it because your birth plan never goes to plan. Mine didn't go to plan. I still think it was wonderful, but you know, if I'd have had it 100% my way, it wouldn't have been how it actually went. So you kind of take your papers with you. At the end of the course, there is actually a template which Siobhan maps out with her own preferences, and they were really helpful actually. So I adapted that to what I felt comfortable with for each scenario. So for instance, I'm not going to go right into detail, but for instance I said that I wanted to have a water birth. I didn't want any intervention with drugs. I would take gas and air if I needed to, and I wanted to take my baby onto my chest. Every specific thing, like I wanted my baby to be on my chest, my husband to cut the cord, but to have delayed cord clamping, which is where you wait for all the blood from the cord to go back into the baby. I didn't want my baby to be weighed before I'd had skin to skin. I just wanted all of these things if possible for my first load of preferences. Then if I had an induced labour, I also had preferences for that. So I didn't want to be induced, that first and foremost, but if I did have to be, then I kind of said how I wanted to be up and mobile. I didn't want to be laying on a bed. I wanted wireless monitoring, which you can always ask for, no harm in asking. And then for a cesarean, I wanted to be able to see my baby, so I wrote down that, so obviously when you're giving birth you can't think straight, so you need it all written out so the midwives can read and be like, right, she wants this, this and this. So I wanted a gentle cesarean if it came to it for whatever reason, or if it was emergency even and there's enough time. Sometimes there's not enough time You know, I'm talking through all these things and you may think, oh, that's easier said when you've got a bit of time. I do understand that birth is time sensitive as well. So with cesareans, it comes to an emergency sometimes and they won't always have time to read your preferences, but there's no harm in them being there. And the cesarean stated clearly that I wanted to be able to see my baby coming out and I wanted it to be gentle. So still my music on, still the lights down low and the baby coming up onto my chest and for it to be as calm as possible. I clearly stated I didn't want an epidural, but going back to my induction preferences, I did state to please offer me an epidural if I couldn't manage the pain. So that would have been potentially where I would have accepted an epidural. Obviously I handled the pain and if you've watched my birthing vlog, I did say a number of times that I have got a fairly high pain threshold, and when I turned up to hospital, you know, that was proven correct because I was actually 10 centimetres dilated, or nearly, and they could not believe it. So I'll get to the birth in a second though. So yeah, I've spoken through or touched on my birthing plan. So let's talk about the toolkit. Because when I was learning about birth with the Positive Birth Company and when I was obviously told by my midwives if I don't give birth by my due date they will offer me an induction, I didn't want an induction for a number of reasons. I feel like when labour is induced your body isn't naturally ready for it, so that's when complications and interventions commonly arise. But again, I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of that. You can obviously do your own research for each area that I talk about, but I became aware that it's a high possibility that I'm going to be late. I think it's 80% of women are actually over their due date, something crazy like that, which is fine to go over, but if I went over 12 days, then I would have to be induced, remember? But this is when I started thinking, well, I don't want to be induced, so I need to figure out how I can induce labour naturally, or encourage my baby to come just before my due date, ideally. And that's when my little toolkit comes into play. So most of my tools kind of help your either flexibility, help to induce labour, or they help you not to tear, apparently. I still tore. So I was 32 weeks pregnant when I started reading up on how I can induce labour or be early. I didn't want to give birth at 32 weeks, but I was just preparing my mind and body to, you know, manifesting this early labour life. I don't quite understand all the ins and outs as to why some of these things help, but all I knew is there was no harm in trying it. So raspberry leaf tea. I was taking this in the last month of my pregnancy. Apparently it helps to bring on early labour. Again, I can't remember why. No harm in having a nice little tasty raspberry leaf tea. Dates as well. I was having 6 dates a day. Again, no harm in that. I don't know if this is the right kind of scientific explanation, but dates like loosen your bowels, and I do kind of feel like when you are about to give birth, you need to loosen your bowels to be able to prepare for labour. I don't know. Who knows? But I like dates. So in the last few weeks leading up to my due date, I started to eat 6 dates a day. Read it online, liked them, tried it. Clary sage oil. So not only do these things help to induce labour, but they also help to progress labour. So if you're already in labour but you need to kind of establish it further and really get things moving, clary sage, so I put that in my humidifier and that pumped it through the air, essential oil. Did it help? Didn't it? I liked the smell, and I'm just saying I managed to get to 10 centimetres dilated at home. So yeah, give clary sage a go. Perfume, again, you guys know how much I love it. So bringing on labour and progressing it has a lot to do with oxytocin, the love hormone. It's what makes you feel like all warm and fuzzy inside, and that's what helps you to dilate. And the more you feel that, the more you dilate. So what gets me going is perfumes, and I get so excited to smell new scents. Like I actually get this warm fuzzy feeling when I unbox a perfume ready to smell it. And I knew that if I had one that had been hyped up a lot, that I had been excited to smell for months, I knew that it would give me those feelings. And when I was at home, I was trying to get to established labour, and I thought, now's the time. I'm nearly there. let's open up a bottle of fragrance and get my oxytocin going. And now this reminds me of labour, and it will forevermore. This is Love by Killian. Don't be shy. And everyone asks what the perfume is that I spray in my birth vlog, actually, and it's this one. This one right here, and it will remind me of baby girl forever. I mean, I was worried that I'd smell this and be like, oh, it reminds me of pain. But no, it reminds me of the most beautiful experience of my life and of my little baby girl. I sprayed it at home, sprayed it at hospital. It just made me feel like, oh, loved it so much that I'm sure it's what made me dilate. And the fact that I hadn't smelt it before made me extra excited to give it a whiff. It's the perfume that Rihanna wears, so I knew that I wouldn't be disappointed. It smells of like marshmallows and vanilla-y goodness, and it's so sweet. I'll leave the link of everything below so you can refer back to it. And then the last few things that I believe help induce or progress labour are a ball, the yoga balls. Amazing. Use them throughout your pregnancy for flexibility, throughout the labour. The more bouncing, like I believe, and hypnobirthing courses will teach you this, that gravity helps. That's why it's not good to lie down for the duration of your labour. You want to be upright, moving, mobile, encouraging your baby to come down, let gravity do its thing, and bouncing on the ball. That helped. It helped so much. Normally your hospital will have one there in the delivery suites as well. Oh, and the starry light. This is all just like my kind of vibes, by the way. But I wanted the lights to be low and the starry light to be on the ceiling. Like, it just makes me feel euphoric. So that was part of my toolbox. I'm going to do a separate video on what's in my hospital bag, but these are like what's in my toolkit for labour and training for birth. That also came in my hospital bag. Not all of these things came in my hospital bag, but hospital bag. Why am I saying that so weird? Music, make sure you've got a playlist ready to play whilst you're labouring at home or in hospital. Your favourite films. I watched The Holiday and Harry Potter because they just give me the good feelings, the warm fuzzy feelings. They remind me of just like happy times, good memories. And walking and yoga helps. I'm just literally listing things that help you induce labour at this point. So let's move on to my toolkit. This fine bit of equipment. So these two things are, or three things, are what I used to help prevent tearing, but I still tore. So again, this goes to show that you can do all you possibly can and it still might not work. Can you guess what this is? It's called an HYPNO. I like to call it a fanny pump. So, you guessed it, you put this up and you pump. This is supposed to help prevent tearing. And I can totally see why. And loads of people have said that it really did help them. I do believe it actually helped me, but I still tore. And the reason why I believe it helped me is because it actually helped me prepare for the feeling of birth. There's something that people refer to called the ring of fire, which is where the head crowns. And honestly, it felt very similar, although totally different at the same time. Yeah, in my opinion, this is better than a perineal massage. A perineal massage is where you get a good oil that is suitable for that area and you give it a really firm massage to stretch the skin. I definitely didn't manage to get all the, I don't even think I got to this big, and her head was bigger than that. You kind of insert it whilst it's small and then pump it up. Do it every night from about 35 weeks and it should help you. I actually believe that I tore though, mostly because of the position I was in. I ended up being on my back, which was not my preference, but I had no energy left. I'd done nearly the whole labour, 72 hours, upright on the ball, on all fours, and just the last little stretch I had no energy left. I had to lay on my back. Ideally I would have been in water, which would have supported me, but I feel like giving birth on my back was probably more of the reason that I tore, along with the fact that she shot out rather than being like head and then shoulders and the rest of her. So those factors combined probably contributed to me tearing. Maybe it would have been even worse if I didn't use the HYPNO. But you know what I say? There is no harm in trying this. Like, what is the harm? And by the way, it can't break your waters. Definitely don't do it before, I think it's like, you don't want to be doing it before 37 weeks. You want to be doing it when you're full term, which is from 37 weeks. But there is something called the mucus plug, the membrane, which we'll get to, that protects your waters. So that kind of protects any infection getting up there as well. So yeah, there's no, you can have sex. You can have sex whilst pregnant, for goodness sake. So, and a bit of a TMI, but talking about sex, we did have sex very regularly whilst I was pregnant, even like when I was 9 months, and that was definitely a helping factor as well, I think, to just bring it all on naturally. I don't know, I can't believe I just said that. I feel like I'm a whole new level of honest and open with you guys since having a baby. Oh, and one more thing. So the perineal massage oil I used in conjunction with the HYPNO, but using evening primrose oil, again, I ingested it and also put it up to where my cervix is, which helps to moisturise the cervical area. Yeah, I guess the more moisturised the whole vagina is, like, the less chance of tearing. Makes sense, but yeah, it's worth trying evening primrose oil. Again, consult your doctor and GP, look into it yourself, but I took a capsule a day. Yeah, a capsule a day ingested. I only put it up there a couple of times, to be quite honest with you. To be honest, I didn't do all of these things religiously. I just did them as frequently as I could remember, quite a lot more leading up to the last few weeks towards my due date. But did all of these things really help? Well, I believe that they did. They definitely played a part, at least, even if that part was making my mind think that I was prepared and inducing my mind and body to work together that way. I don't know, I'm a sucker for a placebo. That's why positive affirmations work so well for me, because like I really do get into the mindset of believing what I'm saying and believing, like, you could tell me that this is the limitless pill and it will make me work like 10 hours straight without taking a break and my brain will be 10 times more alert. I'd take it and believe it, and then it would like have this weird effect where because I believe it, I automatically do it. You know what placebo is. I'm just going to refer to my notes so I don't waffle on too much. But yeah, so I began contractions 6 days early, 6 days before my due date. I detected them, I stayed calm, I stayed active. I knew this was the latent phase of labour. Look up what the latent phase is. It's basically the bit before you're in established labour. And I lost my mucus plug. And I knew what all of these phases, and I knew what the mucus plug was because of the Positive Birth Company. Again, it taught me more than what I ever knew. And these were all signs that I looked out for, and there were signs that I didn't need to be worried about. It made me excited because I knew that I was in labour and I was progressing. I also knew I had to have 3 contractions within 10 minutes for my baby to be anywhere near ready for me to go into hospital. But it actually took from Sunday to Tuesday early morning before I was having 3 contractions within 10 minutes. So 2 days. They were bearable for me, even though the contractions were sharp and intense. They were bearable. I knew what was going on. I was educated. It was mind over matter. However, the reason my birth didn't go exactly to plan was because I actually called up Tuesday morning when I believed I was in established labour, and the doctors said, there's no way you're in established labour. You'd be in way more pain. And I said, oh my gosh, I've got a high pain threshold, and I'm in pain, but you know, I can bear it. And they said, no, you won't be able to bear it. And I said, well, I am starting to worry because she's not moving as much. And they're like, what? Okay, you need to come in, reduced movement. And I was like panicking. I thought, and I didn't want to panic because that's the opposite of what you want. You don't want adrenaline, you want oxytocin. Adrenaline makes labour slow down. So I was like, oh my gosh, okay, don't worry, go in, it's going to be fine. So I went in, they monitored me, and again, I'm going to do long story short, because if you want to know the nitty gritty, then it's all on my labour vlog, minute by minute, documented. But I went in, I was in the waiting room for quite some time, then I went out and I was like, is anyone going to see me? Mid contractions. They laid me on the bed, they monitored me, monitored the baby, put these things on my belly, yeah, just like the heart rate monitor. And that was the first time I was actually laying down in quite a long time, and I was worried that this would slow labour down. And they said, okay, you know, baby is under a bit of distress each time you have a contraction. Do you mind if we assess you? So they were going to see how dilated I was. They said, can't find your cervix, going to ask another nurse to assess. So another nurse came in, assessed, and she was like, can't find your cervix because you are nearly 10 centimetres dilated. Like, you're fully dilated. This baby is coming out. You need to get into one of the birthing rooms now. Is your partner in the car? Because he needs to come in. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is like all go now. They said, how did you do all of this at home? I was like, well, I know I've been in labour since Sunday. I've just been waiting for it to get stronger, and I don't know, just been trying to do it at home. They said, wow, you really have been doing it all at home. Well done, this baby is coming today. They weren't sure if my waters had broken though, and I wasn't sure either, you know, because I'd been wearing the sanitary towels because of my mucus plug, I hate that word, being lost. I don't know, some people say that it trickles out the waters, so I wasn't sure if I was one of those people, or you know, if I was still waiting for the mighty gush. They said that the head was so tight to the sac if my waters hadn't broken, so they couldn't quite tell. But anyway, they declined me a water birth because they said they still wanted to monitor the baby's movements. Now, I wasn't so worried at this point about the baby's movements because she's started to move a bit more. But once you say reduced movements, it's a trigger. They want to monitor everything, which, don't get me wrong, it was important and they were doing their job, and my baby was more important than being in a birthing pool. And then actually what happened after was probably better I wasn't in a pool. I'll get to that. Now, they insisted on monitoring me, absolutely fine, but the problem with that is that they wanted me to lie on the bed. So they wanted me to lie on the bed and to stay still to be monitored pretty much until the baby was going to be here. But the baby wasn't going to be here if I wasn't moving around and being mobile, unless they put me on an induction drip, which they would have done at many points throughout this day if I hadn't have been determined to progress this labour myself. So I requested the wireless monitoring. They got that for me. I was bouncing on the ball, I was mobile again. I did not lie in that bed unless I needed to be checked or examined. I declined interventions maybe 2 or 3 times throughout that day. They wanted to speed up labour. So when I say interventions, they wanted to put me on the drip to make it quicker because my contractions had slowed down. That's because I was in suddenly a new environment. It was sterile, it didn't feel like home, I didn't have enough oxytocin. So I turned my music on, we turned the lights down and put my star lights on, got my perfumes out. I just did everything like shamelessly, you know, this was my day, this was my birth. And me and Buzzy wanted to enjoy it together in the best way we could. I then started to puff on that gas and air, but that was only after they broke my waters. So they checked me again, and then they said, you do need to progress another centimetre or so before you start pushing. And I said, okay, are my waters broken? They said, no, we can do that for you. I said, yep, okay, I agreed to that. So that was my one and only intervention throughout the labour process, and it sped up the contractions like that. But it was my body naturally speeding up. And you know, knowing what it was doing. So then I was on the gas and air. I think I was about 9 hours in active labour. The gas and air really helped me, but lots of people say that it makes them feel sick. It doesn't take away the pain or the feeling whatsoever. Not for me anyway, maybe for others. So I feel like I had 0 painkillers. You can feel absolutely everything. It just makes you feel like you're floating in between. So when the contractions go away, you're no longer in any pain. It's like it goes to 0. It goes like, it can go all the way up to 10 and then down to 0. In the part where you get your breath back and you're in the 0 part, or you know, where it feels like you're in the green zone, as the Positive Birth Company call it, the gas and air effect really made me feel all floaty and happy in between. And then when the contractions came on, I still kind of puffed on it, but it only just took the edge off, to be quite honest with you. Now, I was so passionate about not being on my back for birth and labour, but especially for the delivery of her. However, I just couldn't take it anymore. It had been, you know, from Sunday to Tuesday, I was on my feet and upright for the majority of the time, barely any sleep for like 72 hours. And by that time, it got to the pushing, and the pushing, I also said I didn't want to be coached to push, so I didn't want them to say, right, push now. They only did that for the last few, but I wanted my body to naturally push. So that's something else that you learn, that you don't need to just go and push with all your might. Your body naturally pushes that baby out anyway. The contractions start up, and then it's a transition phase, and you suddenly feel your body pushing the baby out, and that's when you're fully dilated and it's coming down the tubes or whatever it's called, canal. I was on all fours, I was squatting, I was on the bed, I was upright, without like the pool and the water taking a lot of my weight to be able to be in that position. I just couldn't do it for the last few, and I knew that this was it. They said they could see the head, so I just thought, I've done it all upright until now, I'm gonna just lay on my back and give it all I've got now. And that's when I did push, and they said give it all you've got and keep it going. My biggest tip for pushing is when you think you need to stop pushing, or when you feel like you've lost your breath and energy, that's when you need to push even more. It's almost like you go, like you let out as much of a push as you can, and just when you think you need to take a breath, just push that little bit more. I should be a doula or a midwife. No, I'm joking. I really couldn't be. I think that midwives and doulas are heroes, and thank you for all that you do, especially during these hard times. But I definitely enjoy helping you guys out on YouTube. Anyway, back to the birth. This is it, guys. This is the moment. So the final few pushes, I was just like, I'm gonna do it. Took Buzzy's hand, took that gas and air, I took all of the positive thinking I could. I had the positive affirmations on in the background. That's an important part of the toolkit as well. But that comes with the Positive Birthing Company. I played that. It was very much like my body was made to do this. I can do this. I'm a strong woman. I'm about to meet my baby. All these things was like being voiced in the background, and I was just like, yes, this is it. They let me reach down to feel the head, and I was like, this is it. That motivated me to give it all I had. And I really did give it all I had, because she then flew out. So normally you have to hold back your pushes a little bit so you don't tear. So they come out gradually, the head, and then the shoulders, and then the body. But I gave it a push and she shot out. If you've watched the vlog, you'll see she literally flew out, which is another reason why I feel like her name is perfect. Little birdie blue, flying out. So that might be why I tore. Being on my back might be why I tore. It was a 2nd degree tear. It wasn't terrible, and honestly, I couldn't even feel it. I had her on my chest instantly. She was very waxy. We let the cord be delayed in clamping it. Buzzy cut the cord, and she was on my chest for about an hour and a half before they went and weighed her, actually, which was beautiful. Such an important bonding time with my little girl. They stitched me up, but this is where it all kind of went downhill. And when I say downhill, you know, all in all, my birth was positive, but what happened to me, people have died from this. People are traumatised by this type of experience, but I hemorrhaged, which means that I lost significant amounts of blood. And this was down to my placenta tearing away at blood vessels as I had to birth that. So you have to birth the placenta as well. They actually induced me when they saw how much blood I was losing. So the induction was to help the placenta be birthed in the same way that they induce you to push out the baby. It just helped my body to naturally push out the placenta as quickly as possible, which was a huge relief. Oh, it was like the best feeling ever when that came out. But I was just bleeding so much. I avoided a blood transfusion. They did use alternatives and like saline in my blood. Losing nearly 2 litres of blood is life-threatening, and it just made me feel dizzy. I had to stay in overnight and the next day as well. And I do talk about that in my birth vlog, part 1 and part 2. Part 2 I talk about it a lot more. I think my haemoglobin levels were like 65, really low, and it just made me feel faint, to be quite honest with you. They sent Buzzy home the next day, so he got to stay in overnight with me in that room, and then when I was ready to be transferred and monitored on the ward, he had to go home. I quite enjoyed that little day with Birdie, just like I felt totally in the deep end, didn't even know how to change a nappy. There's footage of that in my part 2 vlog as well. But I'm here, guys, and do you know what? I do believe I don't know if lucky is the word, because I really did prepare myself for it as best as possible, and things that happened to me would still be considered traumatic to some people. But even if the birth was traumatic on, say, another level, perhaps I needed an emergency C-section, or if baby girl was at risk, all that mattered to me was her being well and healthy and safe. So My body could have split in two, to be quite honest, and I would have still probably looked at it as a positive birth if she came out in one piece, healthy and thriving. Sounds crazy, but you just only care about your baby. Priorities totally change. But the wonderful midwives and the hospital really looked after me. I got better the next day. I put on a brave face and I was really trying to go home, even though I did feel a bit weak. But yeah, went home, was greeted by my mum, and Buzzy came to collect me from the hospital. He missed us so much just for that one day as well, but he needed his sleep because he hadn't slept either. But before we knew it, we're all at home. The recovery period took a bit longer for me at home just because of the blood loss. You know, the tablets and the diet and everything had to be very strict to help me build up my energy levels, and I was in bed for like 2 weeks. I've documented quite a lot on my vlogs following the birth as well. I don't know how I managed that, to be quite honest with you, but moments where I felt like I had more energy, I brought you along with me day to day. But that is everything, I think, guys. That's how I trained for birth, how I prepared myself mentally, physically, how that impacted my labour and birth eventually, all of my little toolkits and everything. I'm also going to be doing, like I said, a video of what's in my hospital bag. I feel like I nailed my hospital bag, but at least now I can actually tell you what I packed as opposed to what I actually used and what was actually helpful, because I'm an overpacker. And I still overpacked, but everything in there I'd say was appropriate, and I used. I think it was just a bit too much clothes, but all the other things I will touch on in the what I packed in my hospital bag video. Why am I fiddling about that? As I said, I'll list everything below. I'll also link my outfit. Happiness is so cute. It's a really cozy tracksuit. So yeah, I'll link that. I'll link Birdie's outfit and my list of must-haves to help you, along with the Positive Birthing Company. Let me know your experiences. Let us make the comment section a place where we include recommendations that we've either been put onto by other people or that helped you throughout your birth. Are you expecting? Is it your first, second? I look forward to chatting to you in the comment section. Please do subscribe and like this video and join our crazy family. And join our crazy family with the adventures and journey that we've got ahead of us with motherhood. We've got a new house, renovations, beauty and fashion. Don't you think that I'm forgetting about all of that? Thank you again for watching, beauties. Before I go, a crucial part of the toolkit was my Hot Ombre lipstick, and the one I'm wearing here was the one I wore to give birth in, and that is Desert Grunge. It's like a lip ombre kit made and developed by me. You need to add that to your list whether you're giving birth or not, because it makes you feel like a boss bitch. Also, shameless plug again, but I might as well let you guys know that the majority of this hair is a wig, other than these two parts here. Can you see? Wig. It's from Castaway Beauty and it's called the Lopez. It's insane. So yeah, I wish my hair was this luscious. Anyway guys, I hope you did find this helpful, and thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Love you lots. Bye.